Hi everyone, welcome to Money Finance Mindset Episode 8. Did you know that on average, nearly a quarter of our take-home pay goes toward paying off consumer debt? With so much uncertainty in today's economy, it is no surprise that more people are starting to fall behind on payments. Let's take a look at this chart. It shows credit card past due rates for the first quarter of each year, from 2006 all the way through 2025. These rates reflect the percentage of credit card balances that are at least 90 days or 3 months overdue. In early 2006, the rate was 5.5%, but just a few years later, after the housing crash and the Great Recession, it spiked to 10.8%. After that, things slowly improved until the pandemic hit. During COVID, the rates started creeping up again, but they didn't surge like many feared. Why not? 3 reasons: stimulus checks, reduced spending during lockdowns, and the financial relief programs from credit card companies. Together, this helped keep past due rates in check. Fast forward to now, and the picture is less encouraging. Prices for food and everything else have gone up. Interest rates remain high. More and more people are feeling the financial squeeze, and you can see that struggle in the past due rates. They are rising again. As of Q1 2025, we have hit a new high of 7.0%. Falling behind on payments and being in collections can stir up all kinds of emotions: anxiety, embarrassment, fear, and even a sense of helplessness. And honestly, pop culture doesn't make it any easier. Movies and TV shows often depict debt collectors as ruthless or shady. While those portrayals might be entertaining, they are outdated and misleading. They create fear, add to the confusion about how debt collection works, and can leave people feeling too overwhelmed to take actions. So in today's episode, let's clear the air and unpack some of the biggest myths about debt collection. Myth number 1: you can go to jail for unpaid consumer debt. That's just not true. If a debt collector says otherwise, they are not only lying, they are breaking the law. The FDCPA, or Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, is a federal law that protects your rights when it comes to consumer debt. Things like mortgages, car loans, student loans, personal loans, credit cards, home equity lines of credit, and buy now pay later plans are all common examples of consumer debt. But that's not all. Utility bills, medical bills, and payday loans are consumer debt too. The FDCPA bans abusive, deceptive, and unfair behaviors. Saying you will get arrested if you don't pay, that's illegal. Threatening violence or using offensive language, also illegal. Myth number 2: debt collectors can call anytime or tell others about your debt. Absolutely not. The FDCPA says that collectors cannot call you around the clock. They are only allowed to contact you between 8 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock in the evening in your time zone. Calling you outside of that window is a violation. And no, they are not allowed to tell your friends, family, or coworkers about your debt either. That's off limits. After the Great Recession, the federal government created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB. One of their jobs is to enforce and update laws like the FDCPA. In October 2020, they issued a new set of rules to clarify how the FDCPA applies today, and those rules went into effect in November 2021. Under these new rules, debt collectors cannot call you more than 7 times in 7 days about the same debt, unless you give them permission to follow up. And if you tell them not to call you during certain times or on certain days, they must respect that. Also, about not telling others, the CFPB made it clear that this applies to voicemails, text messages, and even social medias. It is okay for a debt collector to leave you a voicemail or send a text message, but they need to be very careful with their words because someone else might hear it or read it. Myth number 3: if you ignore debt collectors long enough, they will go away. That's wishful thinking. Creditors have the memory of an elephant and the persistence of a dog with a bone. They don't forget about unpaid debt. Sure, they may pause collection efforts for a while, but that doesn't mean they are done. I know this because the credit card company I work for had an ongoing strategy to bring old accounts back from the archives and try to collect on them again. And when I say old, I mean that is well beyond a decade old. Some creditors keep that debt on their books, others sold it off. Since there's no limit to how many times a debt can be resold, each new owner has a vested interest in recouping their investment. If phone calls and letters don't work, they may take legal actions. That's right. Creditors, including debt buyers, can sue you in civil courts. Just knowing a lawsuit is coming often makes people pick up the phone and try to work something out. Ignore it though, and they will press ahead. They usually have the documentation to prove you borrowed the money and didn't pay it back. So whether you respond to the lawsuit or not, they are likely to win. But let's be real. They are counting on you not responding so they can get a default judgment quickly and easily. Once they have that judgment, they gain some powerful tools like garnishing your wages or bank accounts in states where that's allowed, or placing a lien on your property, which you will have to clear before you can sell it. You might be wondering, isn't there a statute of limitation for consumer debt? Yes, there is, but it's not an eraser. Once that time runs out, creditors cannot sue you anymore, but they can still call and try to collect. That's why I say creditors have the memory of an elephant and the persistence of a dog with a bone. Ignoring them will not make the debt go away. Myth number 4. If a debt collector contacts you, the debt must be valid. Never say never. If a debt collector reaches out about a debt you have never heard of or one you already paid off a long time ago, go ahead and ask them to validate it. Sometimes the information they have is wrong or outdated. Under the FDCPA, a debt collection company must send you a written notice when it starts its collection efforts. This notice must show 3 things: how much you owe, who you owed it to, and your right to dispute. If this is not your debt, you have 30 days to dispute and request validation. Debt collectors cannot contact you again until they provide the information you asked for. But what if you miss that 30-day window? In practice, you can still dispute the debt and request validation anytime. Creditors, including debt buyers, are legally required to prove you borrowed the money and didn't pay back. But because you raised the validation request after the 30-day window, debt collectors may continue to contact you even as they are trying to sort that out. Myth number 5. Bankruptcy wipes out all your debt. Bankruptcy is not a magic wand. Despite what many people think, bankruptcy does not get rid of all debt. Student loans, for example, usually don't qualify. Even with credit card debt, which can be included in a bankruptcy filing, you might still have to pay back a portion. How much depends on the type of bankruptcy you file and your financial situation. Once you have paid what's required, the rest of your qualifying debt is discharged, meaning you are no longer on the hook for it. But of course, there's no free lunch. Bankruptcy can seriously hurt your credit score and leave a lasting mark on your credit reports. If you file Chapter 7, that negative mark stays for 10 years. With Chapter 13, it sticks around for 7 years. I will make a separate episode to explain more about bankruptcy and dive into the differences between Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. But for now, remember this. Bankruptcy is basically the nuclear option for dealing with debt. It is complicated, it is costly, and it absolutely will not make your problems disappear. Myth number 6. Unpaid debt stays on your credit reports forever. No, it doesn't, but let's not celebrate just yet. The Fair Credit Reporting Act, or FCRA, sets the rules for how long debt can appear on your credit reports. We have already talked about bankruptcy, but what if you don't pay and don't file for bankruptcy? In most cases, the debt stays on your credit reports for 7 years from the original delinquency date. After that, it falls off. That original delinquency date is the first time you missed the payment and never caught up. Say you got a Chase credit card in June 2019. Maybe you were late here and there, but always made up for it until March 2022. You missed a payment then, missed again the next month, and never got back on track. In this case, March 2022 will be the original delinquency date. That debt will stay on your credit reports for 7 years, hurting your credit score the whole time. Once those 7 years are up, it drops off, paid or not. But as I mentioned earlier, creditors have the memory of an elephant and the persistence of a dog with a bone. They can still call and try to collect. That is why having it removed from your credit reports is not necessarily cause for celebration. Myth number 7, paying off an old debt will immediately boost your credit score. Unfortunately, that is not quite true. Just like unpaid debt, paid debt stays on your credit reports for 7 years from the original delinquency date. These accounts carry the status called paid collection. In the US, there are 2 main credit score models, FICO and VantageScore. Both review the history of your credit reports and assign a score between 300 and 850. The higher the score, the more creditworthy you appear. Before 2013, both models treated paid collection negatively because they focused on the fact that you were sent to collections in the first place. So even if you resolved the debt, it didn't help your credit score. That changed when VantageScore updated its formula to exclude accounts marked as paid collection. FICO followed not long after. Sounds good, right? So why is this still a myth? Here's why. First, some creditors still use older versions of the FICO and the VantageScore models that do count paid collection against you. Second, even with newer models, the changes will not show up instantly. Creditors usually report to the credit bureaus once a month, so updates can take 30 to 45 days to appear. Finally, how much your credit score improves depends on what else is on your credit reports. In short, taking care of an old debt is still a smart move, but it does not guarantee an instant or major boost in your credit score. Myth number 8, you have to pay the full amount a debt collector asks for. Absolutely not. It's up for negotiation. Debt collectors want to work with you to resolve the debt. Yes, they will start by asking for the full amount, but they are practical enough to know that's not always realistic. Good debt collectors are skilled listeners and problem solvers. They will ask questions to better understand your situation, like why you feel behind, what your income looks like after covering essentials, and what kind of payment you can actually manage. Based on that, they might offer a payment plan that gives you more breathing room. That plan could last a few months or stretch over several years. Or they might agree to settle for less, and that lower amount can be paid off in smaller monthly chunks too. On top of that, some creditors offer hardship programs that stop late fees and lower your interest rate. These programs can reduce your minimum required payments significantly, giving you a real shot at catching up. In some cases, they may even offer tools to help you rebuild your credit once the debt is repaid. Bottom line, it might feel uncomfortable at first, and you may not get everything sorted in one call, but that's okay. If you stay patient and keep the conversation going, there's a good chance you will land on a plan that works for you. Thanks so much for watching this episode. Remember, that can feel overwhelming, but knowledge is power, and you are taking steps to get ahead. If you found this helpful, please like, share, and subscribe so you will not miss what's coming next. And if you have any questions or topics you want me to cover, drop them in the comments. Until next time, take care of yourselves and your finances.